Relax, everyone knows this marriage is just for show anyway. My husband, Anson, threw that line out at a luxury hotel dinner in front of his investors. 2 years later, at another luxury dinner in the same hotel, he could only stare in shock. As always, before we dive into a story with an ending that's going to feel really satisfying for you, let's do a quick roll call. Type present and the city you're watching from in the comments. For everyone who has liked and subscribed, I pray that Allah makes your problems easier, widens your provision, and keeps your body healthy. Thank you, my friends. Now, listen carefully to my story. My name is Valerie, and for a long time, I thought I was lucky to marry a man like Anson. I grew up in a small town, raised by a single mom who worked as a receptionist in a dental clinic. We never starved, but money was always counted carefully, bill by bill, with size and calculator buttons at the end of the month. When I got a scholarship and moved to the city for college, Mom hugged me in our tiny kitchen and said, "Just don't come back small, okay? Build a bigger life than I could." That sentence followed me everywhere. In college, I met Anson at an entrepreneurship seminar. He was the confident guy in a tailored blazer while the rest of us had hoodies and backpacks. He asked clever questions, laughed loudly, and carried himself like the world already belonged to him. After the talk, he came up to me when I was still scribbling notes. "You actually listen," he said, glancing at my notebook. "Most people just come here for the snacks." I laughed awkwardly. Maybe I came for both. He smiled, and in that moment, with his expensive watch and easy charm, he felt like the door to the bigger life my mom had prayed for. We started dating. He showed me rooftop bars, hotel brunches, quiet cafes with glass walls and city views. I showed him cheap little noodle places and how to stretch $20 for a week. He said I grounded him. I said he inspired me. It felt like a fair trade. When we got married 3 years later, his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Harris, hosted a beautiful ceremony in a country club. My side of the family was small. My mom, my cousin Chloe, and my uncle Mark. His side looked like an entire board of directors. I tried not to feel small as I walked down the aisle. The first odd moment came at our engagement dinner, before the wedding, at his parents' house in the suburbs. Their house was huge, with white columns and a glossy black piano that no one played. I was helping in the kitchen when Mrs. Harris, tall and always immaculate with a pearl necklace, watched me rinse some salad leaves. "So, Valerie," she said lightly, "what did your mother say when she found out Anson chose you?" I smiled, thinking it was a harmless question. She was happy. She always wanted me to have a better life than she did. Mrs. Harris gave a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. A family like ours is a big step up for you." I froze for a second, hands under the tap. "I'm grateful," I said quietly. She looked at my hands, at the way I was scrubbing the bowl. "You don't need to do that here. This house has Linda for those things." She motioned toward their housekeeper. "Just make sure you learn how to host properly. People will expect elegance from you now." It sounded like advice, but it felt like a warning. I laughed it off, but that night, while Anson and I drove back to our small apartment, I stared at my reflection in the car window and felt like I'd just been told my old life was dirt I needed to wash off. I didn't realize that was the first tiny crack in what I thought was a perfect future. After the wedding, I moved into the Harris family home, temporarily, while Anson and I looked for our own place. Temporary lasted a lot longer than I expected. On the surface, life there was polished. Someone ironed my clothes. Someone prepared breakfast. There was always fruit in cut crystal bowls, and fresh flowers on the dining table. But under that gloss, there was this constant reminder that I didn't fully belong. The first clear humiliation came during a Sunday family lunch. Mr. and Mrs. Harris were there, his younger sister Valerie. Yes, almost the same name as mine, which Mrs. Harris loved to point out, and a couple of their family friends. The dining room smelled like roasted beef and expensive perfume. I had just finished bringing in the salad when Mrs. Harris snapped her fingers lightly. "Valerie, sorry, the other one. My dear, could you hand me the gravy?" She waved toward me, then glanced at her friend, Mrs. Collins. We have 2 Valeries now. Sometimes I forget which one is which. Everyone chuckled politely. I smiled. It's okay, you can just call me Val if that's easier. Oh no, Mrs. Collins said. Let's call you, Little Val. Since you're younger, and you're the one that came in later. The table laughed again. Anson smirked. Little Val, I like that. It wasn't the nickname that hurt. It was the way they said it. Like I was a new pet brought into the house. As the conversation went on, they started talking about business. Mr. Harris discussed an acquisition. Anson proudly mentioned his new startup, a tech company called H-Connect. Of course, Valerie is very supportive, Mrs. Harris said, touching her pearls. She knows her biggest contribution is to support Anson's focus. She doesn't need to work. This family already provides everything. I cleared my throat. I actually have been thinking about going back to work, I said. Maybe something related to marketing, or... Anson cut me off with a laugh. My wife's job is to keep me sane, he said, lifting his glass. If she starts working, who's going to calm me down when the market crashes? Everyone laughed again. I tried to laugh too, but it felt tight. Later that evening, when we were alone in our room, I brought it up. Why did you say it like that? I asked. Like me wanting to work is a joke. He sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through his phone. Babe, relax. It was just a joke. They already think I'm under pressure. If my wife starts talking about getting some corporate job, they'll think I'm not capable of taking care of you. I never said you weren't capable, I replied. He rolled his eyes. You are being too sensitive. Seriously, not everything is an attack. You need to learn how to chill in this family. We tease. That's how it is. I fell silent. It was easier than arguing. But something about the way everyone laughed when he diminished me stuck in my chest like a tiny stone. From that day, my name in that house didn't feel like my name anymore. It felt like a role they'd written for me. The pressure started building in small, constant ways. If I left my mug on the kitchen counter, Linda would quietly wash it and then apologize. Mrs. Harris doesn't like seeing clutter, she whispered once, eyes darting toward the doorway. If I wore jeans to breakfast, Mrs. Harris would glance at me and say, "You know, in our circle, wives take pride in looking put together, even at home." If I spent too long on the phone with my mom, Anson would sigh and say, "You're not a kid anymore, Val. My parents think it's weird you call her every day. It makes you look clingy." I started cutting calls short and telling my mom I was busy. One day, a few months after the wedding, I was in Anson's home office, looking for a pen. He usually kept them in a drawer next to his laptop. When I opened it, a folder slid forward, half open. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But my eyes landed on my own name, printed at the top of a contract. It was a shareholder agreement. H-Connect, the company he'd started before we got married. My name was listed as co-founder and owner of 35% of the shares. My heart skipped. I flipped through the pages. My signature was there, dated back to one of those nights when Anson had rushed in with a stack of documents. "Babe, I need another signature for the bank. Can you just sign here and here?" he'd asked, kissing my hair as I was half asleep on the couch. At that time, I didn't even fully understand what I was signing. I trusted him. Now I stared at the signature and whispered, "Why would he put my name as co-founder?" Before I could process it, I heard footsteps. I shoved the folder back into the drawer and closed it just as Anson walked in. "There you are," he said. "What are you doing?" "Looking for a pen," I replied, trying to sound normal. I was writing a grocery list. He glanced at the desk. For a second, his eyes flickered to the drawer, but then he smiled. "You don't need to worry about groceries. Just text Linda what you want. You're not in college anymore. He kissed my forehead. I have a meeting. Try not to stress about little things, okay? After he left, my heart was still racing. I didn't fully understand why that contract mattered yet, but something told me to remember it. That night, when I couldn't sleep, I scribbled H-Connect contract, 35%, in a small notebook and hid the notebook at the back of my wardrobe. I had no idea that little note would one day protect everything I built. As months went by, the psychological games became clearer. Any time I brought up feeling uncomfortable with how his family treated me, the conversation turned on me. One evening, after another Sunday lunch where Mrs. Harris made a comment about my simple background in front of their friends, I told Anson in our room, "It really hurts when she talks about my family like that." He leaned against the doorframe, folding his arms. "She didn't say anything that bad. She said, 'It's good you married into a proper family so your mother doesn't have to worry anymore.' Like my mom's not proper," I replied, my voice shaking. "She meant financially," he said. "And she's not wrong. Why are you always looking for reasons to be offended?" "I'm not," I said. I feel small around them. Like I'll never be enough." He let out a sharp breath. "You know what, Val? You are the one creating drama. My parents have done nothing but open their home to you, and all you do is complain. If you keep acting like this, they'll think you're ungrateful." I went quiet. Then he added, "Sometimes I think you want to feel like a victim. It's like you enjoy it. It's exhausting." That line went straight into my bones. I stopped talking to him about what I felt after that. When I tried to spend more time with my own family, it turned into another problem. One Friday, I told him, "Mom asked if I can visit her for the weekend. She's been feeling lonely." He frowned. "This weekend? We have a dinner with potential investors tomorrow." "I know, but I haven't seen her in months. I can come back Sunday morning." He shook his head. "Investors are more important than some random visit to your mom. If you skip this dinner, what do you think they'll think of me? Of us?" "She's not some random visit," I said quietly. He stared at me coldly. "If you go, don't expect me to defend you when my parents start asking why you're never here when they need to show a united family." That night, I called my mom and lied. I told her I had a work commitment. She laughed and said she was proud of her busy daughter, and I cried silently after we hung up. Little by little, the world outside the Harris house shrank for me. Friends stopped inviting me out because I kept saying I couldn't make it. My mom became a voice I heard less and less. Inside that big house, with its perfect furniture and wide hallways, I felt like a well-dressed ghost. I didn't realize then that this was isolation. I just thought I was failing at being a good wife. The official fall came on a night that was supposed to be the highlight of Anson's career. It was a luxury dinner at a 5-star hotel downtown, organized to celebrate a big new partnership for H-Connect. The ballroom sparkled with chandeliers, polished silverware, and people in black suits and evening gowns. Waiters moved around with trays of champagne. A jazz band played softly in the corner. I wore a navy dress that I had chosen carefully. Mrs. Harris had insisted on helping me pick my outfit earlier that week. "You need to look like you belong," she'd said as we stood in front of a mirror in an expensive boutique. "We don't want anyone thinking Anson married down." The salesperson pretended not to hear that last part. At the dinner, I walked in on Anson's arm, smiling at people I barely knew. He introduced me as my beautiful wife, and for a while, I let myself believe I was part of his success. Halfway through the evening, the speeches began. Mr. Harris spoke first, then the new partner, Mr. Anderson. Then it was Anson's turn. He took the microphone, flashing his confident smile. "Tonight is a big night," he said. "Not just for H-Connect, but for me personally. I wouldn't be here without hard work, my incredible team, and of course," he paused dramatically, "my family." People clapped. I smiled, my heart warming a little. He glanced toward our table. My parents believed in me when this was just an idea in a dorm room. And my wife. He smiled in my direction. Well, let's just say our marriage is proof that sometimes you need a decorative partnership to complete the picture. Laughter rippled through the room. He went on, come on, you all know how it is. Investors see a man with a ring, a fancy wife, and they think, oh good, he's stable, he can handle responsibility. He chuckled. Some people marry for love. Some marry because a united front looks good on a pitch deck. The room laughed louder. I felt heat rush to my face. I stared at him, my hands pressed onto the white tablecloth. Decorative partnership. Fancy wife. A united front. That's not funny, I muttered under my breath. Mrs. Harris leaned toward me and whispered, smile, dear. It's just a joke. Don't ruin the mood. Anson continued, relax, everyone knows this marriage is just for show anyway, he said, grinning. Our real love story is between us and our investors. The laughter this time was a mix of amusement and discomfort, but it was laughter anyway. My chest tightened. I looked around and saw people glancing at me, some with polite smiles, some with pity. I felt like I couldn't breathe. In that moment, I saw myself from outside, sitting at his family's table, dressed in navy and pearls they had picked, smiling through comments that cut my dignity over and over. The girl who had promised her mom she'd never come back small, had shrunk into something unrecognizable. I didn't clap when he finished. I couldn't. After the speeches, when people started mingling, Anson came back to the table, flushed with adrenaline. Did you hear them? He said. They loved it. I'm going home, I said quietly, staring at my untouched dessert. He blinked. What? I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. I said I'm going home. Valerie, don't be dramatic, he said, grabbing my wrist. His fingers dug into my skin. We're at a public event. I pulled my hand free. You mocked our marriage in front of everyone. He lowered his voice. It was a joke. You're blowing this out of proportion. Maybe I am, I said, my voice shaking. And maybe that's because for the last year, every time I said I was hurt, you told me I was crazy, oversensitive, or ungrateful. Maybe I'm finally realizing this isn't partnership. I'm a prop to you. His eyes hardened. You walk out right now, and you'll embarrass me in front of everyone. You will ruin everything I built. I looked at him, at the man I once thought was my door to a bigger life. Then I looked around at the faces in the room. People who laughed when he turned me into a punchline. I think you already did that on your own, I whispered. My hands were shaking, but I picked up my small clutch, straightened my dress, and walked out of that glittering ballroom. I could feel eyes on my back. I could almost hear Mrs. Harris's sharp intake of breath. I knew he would spin some story afterward, that I was emotional, unstable, maybe even sick. But right then, I didn't care. Outside, the cold night air hit my skin. I walked down the steps of the hotel, my heels clicking on the stone, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I felt terrified, yes, but also awake. I took my phone out of my clutch and called a cab. Then I scrolled down to my contacts and hovered over my mom's name. Instead, I called Chloe, my cousin. Val. It's late, what's wrong? She answered, her voice instantly worried. Can I stay with you tonight? I asked. There was a short pause. My couch is always yours, she said. Where are you? Outside the Regent Hotel. I'll text you the address, she replied. Just come. You don't have to explain anything right now. When I got into the cab, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Anson. Come back. Don't make this worse. We'll talk when you're calm. I stared at the screen for a long second, then turned the phone off. I had no plan, no savings of my own, and no idea how I was going to rebuild my life. All I had was a small clutch, a navy dress, and a heart that finally refused to be decorative. That night, I didn't know I had just taken the first step toward building something so big that one day, Anson would only be able to watch it from the outside. After years of quiet humiliation in her wealthy in-laws' house, Valerie finally snapped when her husband Anson mocked their marriage as just for show at a luxury dinner. In front of his investors, he turned her into a joke, so she stood up, walked out of the ballroom, and left with no plan, just the decision that she wouldn't be a decorative prop anymore. Chloe's apartment was small, cluttered, and perfect. There were mismatched cushions on the couch, plants everywhere, and a chipped coffee table covered in magazines and half-burned candles. It didn't look like the Harris mansion at all, and that was exactly why I felt like I could breathe there. The moment I stepped inside, my body gave up. I kicked off my heels, dropped my clutch on the floor, and sat on the couch. Chloe sat next to me, handing me a glass of water. "What happened?" she asked softly. I stared at the water, my hands still shaking. "He made a joke about our marriage being just for show," I said. "In front of everyone. Investors, his parents, their friends." They laughed. Her eyes widened. "He said that? Out loud?" I nodded. I tried to laugh, but it came out broken. "He called me a decorative partnership." "Val." She took a deep breath. "Okay. First of all, I'm proud of you for walking out. A lot of people would have just sat there and smiled." "I don't have a plan," I whispered. "I don't have money. My bank card is his bank card. I don't even know how I'm going to pay for anything." "Hey," Chloe said, putting a hand on my arm. "You have me. You have this couch. You're not alone." Her kindness made the tears finally spill over. I cried so hard my chest hurt. All the swallowed comments, all the gaslighting, all the times I told myself, "It's not that bad," they all flooded out at once. At some point, Chloe pulled out a thick blanket and wrapped it around me. "Sleep," she said. "We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." The next morning, reality hit like a cold shower. When I tried to check my phone, it wouldn't turn on. I'd turned it off the night before, and now the battery was dead. Chloe lent me a charger and made coffee while I waited. As soon as my phone flickered back to life, the notifications exploded. Dozens of messages from Anson. "Where are you? You made a scene. Do you realize what you did? Come home so we can talk like adults. If you keep this up, my parents are done with you. You need to get it together. People are asking questions." Then, a different tone. "You know I was just joking, right? You've been so emotional lately. Maybe you're overwhelmed. We can talk to someone, get you help. My mom is worried about you. She thinks you're not stable. Don't prove her right." Every line twisted the knife. I scrolled further down and saw a message from Mrs. Harris. "Valerie, dear. You walked out in the middle of an important night for Anson. I don't know what's going on with you, but we can't have someone this unpredictable representing our family. For now, it's better if you stay somewhere else until you calm down." Until you calm down. Unpredictable. Not stable. They weren't just upset, they were rewriting the story. Again. I exhaled slowly. I really messed up my life, didn't I? Chloe chewed her toast and shook her head. "No. You finally stopped letting them mess it up for you." "I don't even have my own money," I said. "Everything was under his name or the family." "Didn't you say he had you sign some documents for his company?" she asked suddenly. "You mentioned that months ago. Something about the startup." The memory hit me like a flash. The drawer. The contract. My name. 35%. "I saw something," I said slowly, putting my cup down. "A shareholder agreement. It had my name on it. It listed me as owning 35% of his company." Chloe stared. 35%. "I don't know if I misread it," I said. "I was in a hurry. But I wrote it down." I reached for my purse, realizing my notebook wasn't there. "It's in the wardrobe at the Harris house. I hid it there." Chloe leaned forward. Okay. Step 1. You talk to someone who actually understands this stuff. A lawyer. Not Anson. Not his parents. Someone neutral. I can't afford a lawyer, I murmured. My friend Eric works at a small firm, she said. He's not some big corporate shark, but he knows contracts. He helped me when my old landlord tried to steal my deposit. I'll text him. Just talk to him. You don't have to do anything right away. I hesitated. For the last year, I had trained myself not to trust my own feelings. Every time I tried to stand up for myself, I was told I was dramatic, ungrateful, crazy. Now, making decisions felt terrifying. But then I remembered Anson's laugh, the room's laughter, and how my heart sank when he said our marriage was just for show. Okay, I said finally. Text him. That afternoon, I found myself sitting in a tiny office above a bakery, staring at framed diplomas on the wall. Eric Reed, glasses and a slightly rumpled shirt, sat across from me with a legal pad. Chloe told me a bit, he said, but I'd like to hear it in your own words. Start with the documents you signed. I told him everything. The night Anson handed me a stack of paperwork, saying it was for the bank. The moment I opened the drawer and saw my name on the shareholder agreement. The scribbled note in my hidden notebook. Do you remember the company name? Eric asked. H-Connect, I said. He nodded and pulled out his laptop. It should be registered if it's real. Let's check something. He clicked around, typing quickly. My stomach twisted. Here, he said after a minute. H-Connect. Registered 3 years ago. Founders, Anson Harris and Valerie Lane. I froze. My name is really there? He turned the laptop toward me. My full name stared back at me from the digital register. Legally, Eric said calmly, you're not just his wife. You're his co-founder, owner of 35% of the company's shares. Did you know that? I shook my head, my throat tight. He never told me. He just shoved papers at me to sign. That's convenient, Eric muttered. Let me guess. You don't have copies of any of it. No, I said. Just my note. The actual contract is in his home office. I think. Eric tapped his pen against the table. Then we need that contract. And we need to make copies. Quietly. Before anyone tries to restructure things. What do you mean? I asked. If things get ugly, he said, they might try to transfer assets, amend agreements, or claim you never really contributed. But it doesn't matter if you contributed money or not. You are legally named as co-founder and shareholder. That's powerful. I swallowed. What if he denies it? What if they say I'm making it up? Eric gave me a level look. That's why we don't go in without proof. Can you go back to the house to get your things? Clothes. Personal items. I guess, I said. They told me not to come back until I calmed down, but my stuff is still there. Then go, he said. Act like you're just collecting your belongings. If you can, take pictures of any documents with your name on them. Or bring the contract out, if that's safe. Call me if anything feels off. It felt like a lot. But for the first time since walking out of the hotel, I felt something new under the fear, a small, solid piece of ground. I wasn't just the decorative wife they joked about. On paper, in black and white, I was part of the thing they valued most. The company. And they had been hoping I would never figure that out. Going back to the Harris house felt like walking into a stage where everyone had already rehearsed a script, except me. The driveway was as perfect as ever, the grass trimmed, the front door shiny. I walked in with Chloe by my side for support. Linda opened the door, her eyes widening when she saw me. Mrs. Valerie, she whispered. I mean, Miss. I'm not sure what to call you now. Just Val is fine, I said, forcing a small smile. I'm here to get my things. She nodded quickly, glancing over her shoulder. Your room is still the same. Mrs. Harris is out. Mr. Harris is at work. Anson is. I think he's upstairs. Great. I went straight to the bedroom. My clothes were neatly folded in the wardrobe, as if nothing had changed. But when I opened the drawers, I saw gaps where my jewelry boxes used to be. Chloe noticed too. Where's your necklace? The one your mom gave you. I don't know, I said, my heart starting to race. It was right here. The door opened behind us. Anson stepped in, jaw clenched. So, he said, you finally decided to come home. This isn't home, I replied, straightening up. I'm just here for my things. His eyes flicked to Chloe. You brought an audience. Of course you did. I'm not an audience, Chloe said. I'm family. He laughed once, humorless. Family. Right. He looked back at me. You embarrassed me in front of everyone, Valerie. Investors are asking questions. My parents are furious. And you ghosted me. You mocked our marriage as a joke to impress them, I said quietly. You used me as a prop. I'm allowed to leave when I'm being humiliated. Anson's nostrils flared. You really are sick if you think that was humiliation. Everyone jokes about marriage. You've always been too dramatic. There it was again. The same line. The same script. I'm taking my things, I repeated. That's all. He stepped closer. What are you going to do? Work at a cafe? Move into a shoebox apartment and pretend you're independent? You can't survive on your own. You don't know how this world works. You belong here. Chloe scoffed. She belongs where she's respected. That's not this house. He ignored her. You walking out was the worst decision of your life. But I'm willing to fix it. Come back. We'll tell everyone you were overwhelmed. My mom already has a story prepared. You had some emotional stress. People will understand. My stomach turned. He wanted to turn me into a living PR spin. Behind him, I saw the door to his home office slightly ajar. I'm not coming back, I said quietly. His eyes grew cold. Be very careful, Val. If you walk away from this family, you walk away from everything. Money, status, protection. Don't ever forget who made your life what it is. Every word was meant to scare me into submission. For a second, the old panic rose in my chest. What if he was right? What if I couldn't make it? But then I remembered Eric's face as he showed me my name on the registry. Co-founder. 35%. It wasn't them who had made my life, at least not entirely. They had just convinced me I was worthless without them. I have to get my notebook, I said, moving past him. He grabbed my wrist again. We're not done talking. Yes, we are, I replied, pulling my hand free. Anything else can go through my lawyer. The word lawyer had an interesting effect on him. His jaw tightened. What lawyer? I'm not your decorative partnership anymore, Anson, I said, meeting his eyes. I'm your business partner too. You just forgot to tell me. For the first time, I saw something new in his expression. A flash of fear. You don't know what you're talking about, he said quickly. Those documents are complicated. You wouldn't understand. Maybe not, I said. But my lawyer does. He opened his mouth, then closed it. You're going to regret this, he muttered, stepping aside. I went into the wardrobe and pulled out my notebook from the back, where I had hidden it months ago. The little scribbled line, H-Connect contract, 35%? Stared at me. Got it? Chloe asked. Yeah, I said. Let's go. As we walked out, I glanced at the office door. For a second, I considered rushing in and grabbing the physical contract. But I could feel Anson's eyes on my back. It wasn't safe. Outside, I took a deep breath. The air smelled like cut grass and expensive cologne drifting out from the house. You okay? Chloe asked. No, I said honestly. But I'm done pretending I am. The months that followed were the hardest and strangely the most alive I'd ever felt. I moved in with Chloe properly, sleeping on her couch while I figured out my next steps. My mom visited one weekend, hugging me so tightly I could barely breathe. "I'm sorry," I cried into her shoulder. "I'm sorry I stayed there so long. I thought I had to." She cupped my face. "You never have to stay anywhere you're not respected. I don't care if it's a shack or a palace. My daughter is not a prop." We sat at Chloe's little table, drinking tea, while I told her everything. She listened, eyes shiny, but didn't once say, "I told you so." Eric, meanwhile, worked quietly in the background. He filed a request for documents and began digging through public records. Turned out, my name was on more than just the original shareholder registration. Emails, internal memos, early pitch decks where Anson proudly claimed, "My fiancé and I are building this together." "Did you help with any of this?" Eric asked one day, sliding his laptop toward me. I stared at an old pitch deck slide. I gave him ideas. We used to brainstorm in the campus library. I helped him structure some of the marketing strategy. I thought it was just helping him, you know? Girlfriend stuff. "You helped," Eric said simply. "Now it's time for that to mean something." At the same time, I realized I couldn't just sit and wait for legal processes to save me. I needed my own income, my own identity. I started small. A cafe down the street needed help with their social media. Chloe introduced me to the owner, a kind woman named Amy. "We don't really know how to do all that Instagram stuff," Amy admitted. "We just post pictures of muffins and hope for the best." I smiled. "I can help you," I said. "I studied marketing. I've seen how these high-end places position themselves. We can build a brand. Even if it's just a neighborhood cafe, it can feel special." I didn't charge much at first. Just enough to cover groceries and a bit of rent money to give Chloe. But the more I worked, the more alive I felt. I wasn't just Anson's wife, or Mrs. Harris's daughter-in-law. I was Valerie, the person who could actually create things. Amy's cafe started getting more customers. People posted pictures. She told her friend, who owned a small boutique. The boutique recommended me to a yoga studio. Within a few months, I had a handful of clients who trusted me. One night, while Chloe and I were eating instant noodles at the coffee table, she said, "You know, you could turn this into something bigger." "What do you mean?" I asked. "A business," she said. "You're already doing brand strategy and marketing for multiple clients. Name it. Register it. Put your name on the door before someone else does." The idea scared me and thrilled me at the same time. We spent the night brainstorming names. Most were terrible. Finally, we landed on one that felt right. Nova Lane Studio. Nova, like new star. Lane, like my last name and a path. Eric helped file the paperwork. When I saw founder Valerie Lane on the registration, I almost cried. "This time," he said, "you're not signing anything half asleep on a couch. You know exactly what you're building." As the months turned into a year, Nova Lane grew. We specialized in helping small and medium-sized businesses, especially women-led ones, build strong brands. I used every polished, pretentious conversation I'd overheard at Harris dinners and flipped it, translating that strategy into something accessible for people who didn't grow up in country clubs. We worked late nights. I took meetings in cafes and on video calls. Sometimes I still felt the phantom weight of Mrs. Harris's eyes judging my outfits, but then I'd remember I didn't owe her elegance anymore. I owed myself honesty. Nova Lane's results spoke loudly. Clients doubled their revenue. Some got featured in magazines. Word of mouth spread. A year and a half after I walked out of that hotel ballroom, I no longer slept on Chloe's couch. I had a small but bright apartment, my own bed, and a little balcony where I drank coffee in the morning. I'd bought my mom a better washing machine and started saving for something bigger for her. Every now and then, Anson texted. At first, You're being unreasonable. My parents can't understand why you're dragging this out. Then, we need to talk about the company. There are things going on you don't understand. Finally, one day, a new message popped up. We have a proposal. It's better for everyone if you sign your shares over to me. Lawyer attached will explain. You'll get a nice sum and we can put this behind us. He attached a PDF, an agreement for me to sell my shares for an amount that sounded big, until Eric explained how much H-Connect was actually worth. This is laughable, Eric said. He's offering you a fraction of what your stake is worth. He's hoping you'll be scared and grab the first life raft he throws. What if I don't want any connection to him at all? I asked. What if I just want to be done? You can be done, Eric replied, but on terms that aren't him spitting in your face one last time. You hold more power than you think. Around that time, H-Connect started getting mentioned in tech articles. For the wrong reasons. Rumors of internal conflict. Delayed product launches. Quiet murmurs of investor disappointment. They scaled fast but didn't think about brand consistency, I remarked to Chloe once, reading an article late at night. Their communication is all over the place. Investors hate confusion. Chloe looked at me. Sounds like someone we know could fix that. If she wanted to. I shook my head. We're on opposite sides. Or, she said, you're above it. You're not his wife anymore. You're a businesswoman with leverage. I didn't see how that would lead to anything. Not yet. But life was quietly moving pieces into place for a bigger scene than anything I could have planned on my own. The turning point came in the form of an email from a name I recognized immediately. Mr. Anderson. He had been at that first luxury dinner, the one where Anson had mocked our marriage. Lanky, sarcastic, with a reputation as a tough but fair investor. Now, he was in my inbox. Valerie. I've been hearing about Nova Lane Studio from several portfolio companies. Impressive work. Would you be open to a meeting? I'm leading a rebranding and strategic communication initiative for a group of our investments. I think you're the right person to help. Best. Charles Anderson. I had to read it twice. He didn't mention Anson. He didn't mention the past. He saw me as a founder. That alone almost sent me into tears. At the meeting, held in a glass-walled conference room, he shook my hand and said, "You look different from the last time I saw you." I smiled tightly. "I've had a few life updates." He chuckled. "Haven't we all?" We spent an hour talking about strategies, not about my personal life. At the end, he leaned back. H-Connect is one of the companies struggling with brand trust right now, he said casually. You know them. I do, I said, keeping my face neutral. I'll be honest, he went on. They grew fast but not thoughtfully. Public perception is shaky. Internally, there's, shall we say, ego tension. I'm considering insisting on a communication and brand restructuring as a condition for continued support. I want a partner leading that who isn't afraid to tell them the truth. My heart pounded. And you're asking if I'm willing to be that partner? He watched me carefully. I'm asking if you can separate your history from business long enough to make a lot of people, including yourself, very successful. I took a breath. I own 35% of H-Connect, I said calmly. He never told you that, did he? Mr. Anderson's eyebrows shot up. You what? Eric had prepared a neat folder in case this moment ever came. I slid a copy of the shareholder registration and the early pitch deck across the table. For a long time, I was just the wife in the room, I said. But on paper, I've been there since the beginning. He used my name when it was convenient, and erased it when it wasn't. Mr. Anderson scanned the documents, his face serious. This changes things, he murmured. If there's conflict between major shareholders, we need to know. I'm not looking to destroy H-Connect, I said. I'm just done being invisible. I built something of my own. And I'm willing to use what I know to create something better for the company and for myself. He tapped the folder. Would you be willing to sit down with the other investors and talk options? I nodded slowly. Yes. On one condition. Name it. I won't be in a room alone with Anson again, I said. Not for negotiations. Not for apologies. If we talk business, it's across a table with witnesses. He gave a small, impressed smile. Reasonable. I'll have my team set something up. That meeting turned into weeks of calls, documents, and strategy. In the end, the investors made a decision. They would restructure H-Connect's leadership. Anson would step down as sole CEO, remaining in a reduced role. A new executive team would come in, along with a new communication strategy. My 35% stake would be formally acknowledged and could be partially converted to shares in a new joint initiative, a strategic communications and branding arm led by Novalane and backed by the fund. It wasn't revenge. It was evolution. Anson fought it, of course. There were angry emails, desperate calls, one message where he wrote, "I can't believe you're trying to take my life's work." I didn't respond. I just let my lawyer and the investors handle it. The final agreement was signed in a high-rise office with a sweeping view of the city. I watched my name go on to another set of documents, this time with my eyes wide open. 2 years after I walked out of that hotel ballroom in a navy dress, I owned a thriving company and sat at the table as a strategic partner, not as someone's plus one. So when the investors decided to host a new luxury dinner at the same hotel, this time, to announce a bold new initiative featuring Novalane as a key partner, I knew I had to be there. Not as someone's decorative wife. As someone whose name was on the first slide of the presentation. The hotel looked exactly the same. Same marble floors, same golden lights, same grand staircase. For a second, my chest tightened. I could almost hear Anson's voice echoing. Relax, everyone knows this marriage is just for show anyway. But this time, I didn't walk in on his arm. I walked in flanked by Chloe and Eric, both dressed sharply. Chloe whispered in my ear, "Remember when you walked down those stairs escaping? Tonight you're walking down them arriving." We entered the ballroom. Investors, founders, and executives mingled, holding glasses of sparkling water and wine. There was the same jazz band in the corner, playing similar music. But the energy around me felt different. I wasn't small anymore. I wasn't unsure if I belonged. I belonged because I had built something that brought results. My name had weight now, on contracts, in people's calendars, in their list of people to call when we need real change. I saw Anson near the bar, speaking to a couple of men in suits. He looked thinner than I remembered, tired around the eyes. When he noticed me, his words faltered for a moment. Our eyes met. For a second, old memories flashed. Campus nights, jokes over takeout, him saying, "You ground me." It would have been easy to fall into old guilt, to think, maybe I was too harsh. Then I remembered him grabbing my wrist, telling me I was crazy, insisting I was just a prop, mocking our marriage in front of a crowd. I turned away first, not out of weakness, but because he wasn't my center anymore. The host, a charming middle-aged woman named Julia, took the microphone at the front of the room. "Good evening, everyone," she said. "Tonight, we're not just celebrating past successes. We're announcing a new chapter, one focused on rebuilding trust, strengthening brands, and empowering the people behind the products." I stood near the stage, heart beating fast. "In this new direction," Julia continued, "we wanted a partner who understands both the polished boardrooms and the messy reality behind closed doors. Someone who has seen what it's like to be underestimated, and turned that into fuel, not bitterness." She smiled in my direction. "A lot of you know her from the work she's done with your companies already. Some of you knew her before she even had her own name on the door. But tonight, we're formally introducing her as the woman whose company every business in this room will want to work with." She extended her hand toward me. "Please welcome the founder and CEO of Novalane Studio, Ms. Valerie Lane." For a moment, The room blurred. People started clapping. Loud, sustained. Chloe hooped somewhere behind me. Eric nudged me gently. "Go," he whispered. I walked up to the stage. As I passed the bar, I saw Anson still standing there. His face was pale. His glass hung loosely in his hand. His mouth was slightly open, like he couldn't quite process what was happening. The last time we were in this room together at a luxury dinner, he had used me as a joke to charm his investors. Now those same investors were applauding me. I took the microphone from Julia, my fingers only slightly shaking. The applause faded. "Good evening," I said. "Some of you know me as Val. Some of you only know Nova Lane and the results we've helped you get. And some of you knew me a long time ago, when I was sitting at one of those tables, trying to be small enough not to make anyone uncomfortable." A light ripple went through the room. I used to think my job was to sit quietly, smile, and make other people look stable, I went on. I thought that if I was agreeable enough, graceful enough, grateful enough, I'd be safe. I'd be valued. I looked around at the faces in the crowd. Some leaned forward. Some looked away, uneasy. "That didn't happen," I said simply. "What did happen was that one night, right here in this hotel, I heard someone reduce our entire marriage to a business prop. In that moment, I realized that if I didn't walk away, I would disappear completely. So I walked out in my nice dress with no plan and no money. I saw Anson flinch at the bar. What I didn't know then was that I already had value," I said. "Not because I had a ring, or a famous last name, or a place at some fancy table. I had value because I had ideas. I had work ethic. I had a way of seeing what brands and people could be." I smiled, just a little. And luckily, I had people who believed me when I said, "I think I deserve better than being a decorative partnership." There was a soft laugh from somewhere. Not mocking. Understanding. "So tonight," I said, "I'm not here as anyone's wife. I'm here as a founder, a co-owner, and a partner. Nova Lane exists to help companies tell the truth about who they are, and to become proud of that truth. We will be working closely with portfolio companies, including those going through leadership changes, to rebuild trust from the inside out." I let that line hang in the air. Some people glanced instinctively at Anson. "I learned something important," I finished. "When you stop begging to sit at someone else's table and start building your own, the right people will come looking for a seat. The ones who only liked you as a silent accessory." I shrugged lightly. "They can watch from the back of the room." The applause this time was louder, longer. It wasn't polite. It was warm. When I stepped down from the stage, people approached me. Founders, managers, even a couple of investors who once only spoke to my husband. Powerful speech. "We should talk next week about a campaign. I didn't know you were behind Nova Lane. No wonder your work feels so personal." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mr. and Mrs. Harris standing near the doorway. I hadn't even noticed them come in. Mrs. Harris's face was stiff, her lips pressed tight. Mr. Harris just stared, his expression unreadable. For once, I didn't feel the urge to impress them. Eventually, Anson walked over, alone. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. Eric stepped closer, but I held up a hand. "It's okay," I told him. "I've got this." We moved a little to the side, near a tall window overlooking the city. Lights flickered below like distant stars. "You really went all in, huh?" Anson said, forcing a laugh. "Nice speech. You made me sound like a monster." "I just told the truth," I replied calmly. "I didn't even mention your name." He scoffed. "You didn't need to. Everyone knows. They're all looking at me like I'm some villain in your little story." "For years," I said, "you let your family treat me like I was lucky to be tolerated. You called me crazy whenever I said I was hurt. You mocked our marriage in front of a crowd. If anyone sees you differently now, that's not because of my speech. It's because they finally have the full picture." He rubbed his forehead. "You had everything here. Money. Status. A family name. You threw it away for what? Some small agency. I smiled, but there was no bitterness in it. Just clarity. I didn't throw anything away, I said. I traded one kind of life for another. I traded a big house where I felt invisible for a small apartment where I know exactly who I am. I traded being your background decoration for building an actual company that helps people. And for the record, it's not a small agency anymore. He looked at me, really looked, as if seeing someone he didn't quite recognize. You could have stayed and still had all this, he muttered. We could have worked it out. You ruined everything. I shook my head. No, Anson. You did. When you decided that humiliating me was good for your image. When you used my name on your contracts, then erased me in public. I just stopped covering for you. He clenched his jaw. Is this your revenge then? Taking a piece of my company? Standing up there while my investors applaud you? This isn't revenge, I said softly. Revenge would have been trying to burn everything down. I didn't. I helped restructure things so H-Connect has a future. You still have a role. You still have a company. You just don't get to pretend I never existed anymore. He turned away for a second, shoulders tense. You'll never find someone who cares about you like I did, he said quietly. No one will ever understand you like I did. I let the words wash over me. They didn't stick the way they used to. Maybe, I said. Maybe not. But I finally understand myself. That's enough. He opened his mouth again, then stopped. Whatever he was going to say died on his tongue. Any future communication can go through the lawyers, I said gently but firmly. Tonight, I'm here for my work. Not for us. Because us ended the night you turned me into a punchline. For a second, I thought he might argue. Instead, he just looked tired. Enjoy your empire, Valerie, he said, the word dripping with a bitterness that didn't affect me the way it used to. He walked away without looking back. I watched him go and felt not triumphant, not ecstatic, just free. Chloe slid up beside me a moment later. You okay? Yeah, I said, exhaling. I think I finally am. We stood by the window, looking out over the city. 2 years ago, I walked out of this hotel feeling like my life had ended. Tonight, I walked out of it knowing my life had finally begun on my own terms. From everything I went through, I learned that if someone only values you when you're silent, they don't really value you at all. Walking away from a place where you're consistently disrespected isn't being dramatic. It's opening the door for a future where your effort, kindness, and ideas actually mean something. If you're in a situation like mine back then, please remember that building a life from zero is still better than slowly disappearing in a life that looks perfect from the outside but kills your spirit on the inside. If you've ever gone through something similar or you want to share your own story, write it in the comments below. Don't forget to share this story with your friends, like the video, and subscribe so you don't miss the next stories.